Welcome to the Positive Sports Podcast. I'll be your host this evening, Ed Montana. As you can see, I have no co-host today. Alex is on to bigger and better things. Not that he's left the show, don't get me wrong. He's just doing other more important stuff than hanging out and talking sports with me and you. So, you get the Positive Sports Podcast light, as I've said before. Me talking about myself. You know, I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I'm always amazed at the guys that can do it by themselves. It's hard to not have someone to share your thoughts with and to just kind of banter on your own. So, if this doesn't go as long as the other ones, don't be surprised. It's just the way it is when you're flying solo. Hey, let's get right into it, right? So, the Major League season is quickly winding down. As I've said before, the American League has pretty much been a done deal. The only thing that we really have to debate is who's going to be in the not even who's going to be in the wild card game, where the wild card game is going to take place. The Red Sox, Indians, and Astros look like they're very clearly going to win their divisions by a healthy margin all the way around. The Astros will be the closest ones. They're only up 4.5 on the A's, and so they have not exactly clinched the West, but they will here in a day or two. That leaves the two wild card spots, which very clearly right now belong to the Yankees and the A's. The Mariners are out of it. The Mariners are out of it. I think the only one with a mathematical shot is the Tampa Bay Rays, and they're not going to make it. So it's going to come down to the Yankees and the A's. The Yankees are up a game right now, maybe a game and a half. So it looks like it'll take place in New York unless something catastrophic happens. The real concern now is who's going to pitch this game? Who's going to pitch this game for the Yankees? Who's going to pitch for the A's? The A's, do it a little bit. They don't really rely on a starter as much. They're going to try to bang it out either way. It should be quite interesting the rest of the way, just to see who makes it or to see who pitches. The one game wild card game to continue on in the playoffs to me is silly, but it's the way the MLB chooses to do it. And so that is what we have right now. I think it's dumb. I think they should just take the 4 teams and play best of 7 to get to the World Series, or best of 5, best of 7, whatever. But this is the baseball that we have now. It's kind of to me, it's almost a fake playoff game. But as my brother likes to call it, he likes to call it the 163rd game. He doesn't even think of it as a playoff game. I understand his thought process as well. In the National League, with a week or so left in the season, it is also starting to become more clear. You've got the Braves winning the East. The Cubs are up 2.5 in the Central. Looks like they're going to be able to hold off the Brewers. The Dodgers are up 1.5 on Colorado, although I think they play head-to-head this week, if I'm not mistaken. They had a very good series in L.A. last week, with L.A. actually sweeping them, but every game was really close. It was good stuff to watch. I'm curious now about the rest of the schedule, but the Dodgers and the Rockies, I think, are going to battle it out to the bitter end. And it's important because if you don't win the West, you don't get in the playoffs. That's the way it's looking right now. And that's troublesome for one of those very good teams. The Dodgers and the Rockies are both really good, and it'll be a shame that one of them doesn't make it. Actually, they don't play again. So the Dodgers have Arizona and San Francisco this week to finish out the season, and Colorado has, let's see, they just got through with the Diamondbacks and eliminated them by sweeping them this weekend. So they've really held on to their pace. They've got the Phillies for 4 and Washington for 3. The Phillies are pretty much out of it. I think they have actually been eliminated in both the division and the wild card. Like I said earlier this season, about a month ago, or actually a little bit more than a month ago, I thought the Phillies would fade. But there's certainly a lot to be excited about for them for the future. I think that's a good young team. Look at what the Braves did this year. I could see the Phillies improving dramatically next year as well. But yeah, the Phillies are out of it as of right now completely. So that's the end of them. So really, it comes down to the Central. You still have a bit of a battle as to who's going to win that division. But again, the Cubs are up 2.5 on them, on the Brewers. I don't think the Brewers are going to make it, but they are going to make the playoffs. I think they're very clearly going to be the better wild card team, so they'll be playing that wild card game in Milwaukee. And then it comes down to the winner of the West, the Dodgers or the Rockies. I think the Dodgers are going to prevail. They're the better team. It's a shame that the Rockies are going to have such a good season and not make the playoffs. It doesn't look that way right now. And then St. Louis will get the second wild card spot. And if you think about St. Louis this season, really quite the turnaround when you think back. What a masterful job they've done of turning things around. They fired Mike Matheny during the season, which is a very un-St. Louis-like thing to do. And they have really put together a strong second half to get themselves in this wild card position. I think they're going to make it. So I think it's going to be them and the Brewers in that wild card game. And then you've got Atlanta, Chicago, and the Dodgers in the playoffs. And like I said before, I enjoy the playoffs no matter what. But the American League playoffs are going to be beyond entertaining. And the National League playoffs will be entertaining as well. But you just can't help but feel that your World Series champion is going to come out of the American League. There's so many good teams over there. Quite frankly, I think all 5 of the teams that are going to make the playoffs are exceptional and could very well win the World Series if they get hot. Anything can happen in the playoffs for sure, but I think the tipping point of potential is definitely on the American League side. I have completely lost command of the English language. I don't know why. I hope you're not listening to this. It's terrible. I think the dominance will come from the American League. The American League, I think, has much more talent, better teams, better even suited for the playoffs. You've got the Red Sox with exceptional pitching, the Indians with exceptional pitching, the Astros with probably the best pitching, if I had to guess. It looks awfully tough to beat one of those American League teams. So I am very much looking forward to that and their playoff run. Let me know what you think. Share your thoughts with me. Let me know if you think the one game wild card game is a waste of time, or if you think we should add more teams. Hey, I think 4 teams from each league is plenty. But some people like playoffs the way they do it in the NBA, where half the teams make it. In which case you'd have 16 teams in the playoffs, which is quite a bit. If you want to get a hold of the show and share your thoughts with me, you can do so at positivesports10@gmail.com, positivesports10@gmail.com. If you want to get a hold of me, you can do so on Twitter at eMontana21. And if you want to get a hold of my co-host, my absent co-host today, but not for long, he will be back, you can get a hold of Alex on Twitter as well at Brooklyn Gaucho. So, with that, there's really not much going on in the world of baseball. We're just waiting for the playoffs at this point. There is a little bit of drama in the National League. It's really been kind of dry. The balance of power in the American League has made it almost unwatchable because there's so many bad teams like the Royals, the Orioles, the Rangers have had a horrific season. And then there's teams that are so good over in the American League with the Red Sox, Indians, and Astros, and the Yankees as well. So it's been really hard to watch. One thing to look out for this week as we come down, winding down the seasons, you want to see the races for the hitting crown and the home run crown and all that. The big names are still going at it. So you've got J.D. Martinez still in the hunt for the Triple Crown, although it's looking a little difficult for him. Mookie Betts. You've got Francisco Lindor and Ramirez, who are having fantastic seasons for the Indians. with the Astros, Alex Bregman has had really a breakout season again. I thought last year was his breakout season, the way he played, especially during the playoff run. But this year he has just been phenomenal. Really carried that team through a tough stretch when Altuve and Correa were injured. But he's really been the star of that team. So, there's all that kind of stuff to look out for. And, some other oddball things like Adrian Beltre, likely his last season in Texas. He hasn't announced his retirement, although that's what a lot of people expect. They expect that he will retire after this season. Really an incredible hitter over the years. Reached 3,000 hits not that long ago, and really just a future Hall of Famer. It'll be sad if he does call it quits, but Father Time loses to no one. So it'll be interesting to see how the last bit of the season is for him as well. Looking over some, and then in the National League, you've got a lot of good. A lot of good talent that we're still looking at here for the tail end of the season for the awards. The most notable one, of course, is the Cy Young Award, where you have this. You've got really 2-3 really good pitchers who deserve a lot of talk about their seasons and that award. And the oddball one, of course, is Jacob deGrom, who's had a masterful season for the Mets. He's got by far the best ERA in the majors, around 1.73 or something. But pitching for the Mets and getting minimal run support, sports a record of 9-9, which doesn't look Cy Young worthy to a lot of people. But we've had this argument before between Alex and I, and I think in general, wins and losses just don't matter as much as they used to. With pitchers going less and less innings, it's harder and harder for them to accumulate wins and losses, to be honest. To only have 18 decisions in a season when you have 32, 34 starts really tells you that it's hard to even get decisions, even when you pitch well. So DeGrom is the oddball member of that Cy Young conversation. Of course, you have Max Scherzer, who's been phenomenal, although he has faded a little bit here at the end of the season. I don't know how much of that is just the fact that there's really nothing to play for with the Nationals, but he's got some tremendous numbers again. And, I didn't have him in the conversation 6 weeks ago, right around the All-Star break, but Aaron Nola has really had a phenomenal season. He's got an exceptional win-loss record, and his stats are right there. Not as good as DeGrom's by no means, but, he is right there, and he has been really a key cog in that Philadelphia machine that has turned this season around for them well beyond the expectations of most pundits. I know my brother and I were not very high on the Phillies before the season started, and he's a big reason why they have done as well as they have. I know it's hard to say that sometimes about a starting pitcher who plays once every 5 games, but that momentum, the thing about starting pitching is they provide momentum when the team is going well. It almost becomes an easy win when things are going well, and when things are going tough, they're the ones that stop that train and turn things around for the team. So it is critically important, and I think Aaron Nola has done that throughout the season for the Phillies. And I'm excited to see what that guy's going to do in the seasons to come. I think he's a good young pitcher, and so long as he stays healthy, right? That's always the caveat with pitchers, is so long as he stays healthy. It should be quite interesting. When you're talking, the other categories, the offensive categories in the National League, man, it's tough. Christian Yelich has had an incredible season for Milwaukee. He currently leads the league in batting average, and let's face it, he's got 2 cycles in the span of a month, albeit against the same team, but still, that's pretty darn impressive. His numbers are really impressive, and I'm excited to see if he gets his due playing for a small market team. The home run race, you got Matt Carpenter from the Cardinals with 36, and then you've got several guys with 34 behind them, 34, 33. So it's going to come down to the very, very end. And And so the MVP race in the National League should be quite interesting. I think it's Yelich, but I wouldn't be shocked if it's Carpenter or someone else even. Someone that Javier Baez has had a hell of a season as well. So who knows? One thing to look out for that I did not mention before, but as I mentioned Javier Baez, it comes to my mind. The Cubs are treading on thin ice with a very, very delicate situation with Addison Russell. You'll remember earlier in the year, as he was going through a divorce, or had just finalized his divorce from his wife, she had posted something on Instagram talking about being happy to be free and starting her life over and blah, blah, blah. And someone posted on that post, made some insinuation about physical abuse. And MLB started investigating, and nothing really came of it. The Cubs didn't do anything to Addison Russell, and nothing came of it at the time. Now, several months later, a blog post by his ex-wife details, not in graphic detail, but in pretty clear detail, that there may have been some physical abuse, some emotional abuse, etc., etc. And now, MLB never shut off their investigation. They never closed their investigation. It was still open. His ex-wife was not willing to cooperate with the MLB back in the spring and early summer. But now she penned this blog, and MLB has opened up the investigation even further, and they're continuing to investigate, try to figure out what's going on. But the Cubs have placed Addison Russell on administrative leave, paid leave or whatever. So it's a situation worth looking at or worth considering when you're thinking about the Cubs as you get into this playoff run. That is quite a distraction in a clubhouse, and it could be a serious problem. I don't even know how to express my disgust for stuff like this that happens. And I understand that it happens, but it is so unfortunate that guys choose to go this route. I don't understand why they do it, and quite frankly, if he did any of these things, if he did any kind of physical abuse, I hope he pays for it dearly, because we've got to stop. It's just, man, it is just don't do it. Just don't do it. Just don't abuse people, especially in your own family. It's ridiculous. He's got a 2-year-old son. I mean, it's just terrible. And I hope it's not true. If it is true, I hope they do away with him, because there's no place for it. It's amazing how many kids look up to these baseball players, football players, whatever, these athletes. The last thing I want to see is guys doing this in their personal lives and being that kind of example and role model to kids. So I hope it blows over, and whatever the resolution is. But as far as the Cubs, the baseball team, it's a distraction. And Addison Russell's been a key member of that team. It really makes me worry about the Cubs in terms of baseball. Obviously, greater concern is for Addison Russell and his ex-wife. But something to keep an eye on as we get into the heart of the pressure cooker that is the playoffs, the Major League Baseball playoffs. Moving along. Well, we're in week 3 now of the NFL season. And I said this last week, and I'm going to say it again. I don't know what's going on. I won't say completely. There's a couple of things that I know. But for the most part, I am thoroughly confused this year. I do not know what's going on in the NFL. Man, I don't even know where to begin. I guess we'll start in the AFC. Miami is 3-0, and they haven't crushed people, but they're winning football games. They beat the Raiders today, and I just don't understand where all this execution is coming from with Miami. They haven't scored a ton, but their defense has been very good. And here they are, 3-0 in the AFC East. The Bills, who looked terrible for 2 weeks, came up today and absolutely shocked everybody by beating the Minnesota Vikings and beating them like a drum. I read an article earlier this week about how there's no big spreads once you get to week 3. Everyone pretty much knows, and there's just there is a certain amount of parity in the NFL. No big spreads by week 3, and everyone was commenting on how the Bills were a plus 16 or 17 underdog, which is kind of unheard of. Well, not only were they plus 17, it was in Minnesota. They went into Minnesota and beat them, and beat them pretty soundly. Minnesota played an extremely sloppy football game, turnovers left and right. Kirk Cousins, who I still think is going to be fantastic for the Minnesota Vikings and an improvement over what they had before in Case Keenum, looked terrible. Lost the football a couple times. The offensive line looked terrible. It was an ugly football game for them, but the Bills looked fantastic. And then moving on, Pittsburgh plays tomorrow night, so we don't know if they're going to get their first win of the season, but they're playing against a Tampa Bay team that's pretty hot, who has also been a surprise this season. Ryan Fitzmagic has been magical this season and he's really just been incredible. I mean, he's played exceptionally well, making it very difficult for the Buccaneers in terms of who are they going to put in when Jameis Winston gets back. I've heard some people say, hey, look, Jameis Winston's a better quarterback. The offense is playing great. You just got to plug in a better quarterback and go with it. And I've heard other people say you don't touch the hot hand. So it's an interesting argument. My opinion, I think Jameis Winston is a bit of a problem for that team. I say you ride Ryan Fitzpatrick until the wheels fall off. If he started off this good, and look, the guy's got experience in the NFL. I know he's never been a number one quarterback. He's always been the backup that comes in and spells for 4 games and sometimes does well, sometimes doesn't. But look, maybe he's got it. Maybe he's got it. Nick Foles had it last year, right? Nick Foles is a similar type of guy who's been a backup for a long time. And, he came in the pressure cooker last year and did just fine. Did just fine this season to start off until Wentz came back today. So I think you ride Ryan Fitzpatrick until the wheels fall off, because I think he's a veteran and that young team needs his direction, needs the direction of a guy who knows what's going on in the NFL. And Jameis Winston just isn't that big of an upgrade. Physically, absolutely. But mentally, Jameis Winston has proven to be a mediocre quarterback in the NFL. And that's the truth. Sorry. I know that's going to hurt some people's feelings, mostly Buccaneer fans and Jameis Winston himself. But that's the truth. Moving on. So now we've got our first bit of drama in Cleveland. Tyrod Taylor went down with a concussion, and Baker Mayfield came in and rallied them from down 17 or down 14, I believe, to win on Thursday night 21-17 over the Jets. Yeah, look, beating the Jets is not, it's not the best team in football, but it's winning a football game, which in Cleveland hadn't happened in 653 days or whatever the ridiculous number was. So he did something special. And quite frankly, this guy has some kind of moxie. He's got some kind of attitude. He's got some kind of leadership. There's something about this guy that translates to winning. And I know initially Hugh Jackson said he wasn't sure who he was going to start. I believe he's come out now and said that he will start Baker Mayfield next week, which I think is the right thing to do. If you draft a guy that high, it's because you expect him to be a franchise quarterback. And he's had a couple of weeks to watch, see how things go. There's not a whole lot of expectations in Cleveland. Let him go out there and learn. Let him go the Troy Aikman route and let him take his bumps and let him learn and become an NFL quarterback and see if you truly do have a franchise quarterback. And there's something about that guy. He wins. I don't know what else to tell you. But he's got a certain leadership quality to him. He's got a certain guts to him that makes him an incredible quarterback, an incredible leader. If you know the story of Baker Mayfield, you know this is not some run-of-the-mill quarterback. He has taken his bumps and bruises. He's walked on and he's transferred and he's become the quarterback and he won a Heisman Trophy. He's accomplished a lot without a whole lot being fed to him. And look, that's what the Cleveland Browns are. You got to come in here and be successful without us feeding you a whole lot because we don't have a whole lot. It's just that simple. So, I say give him his time and let him learn and let's go. Let's see what's going to happen. He gave you your first win in 653 years. I'm not saying he's going to give you 653 days. I'm not saying he's going to give you your first Super Bowl in forever, but give him a shot. Let's see what happens. Tyrod Taylor is not the solution long term anyway. So, go with what you have. Go with the guy that you drafted that high. If you drafted him that high, you must have had these expectations. So let's go. This is the perfect opportunity. In the South, we've got another surprise, right? The Tennessee Titans are 2-1. So they lost the first week to Miami. And if you recall, that game was the game that was interrupted for hours due to some thunderstorm. So it was kind of an oddball game. They were in the game, but they lost. And they came back last week. They beat the Texans. And then today, they beat the Jaguars. Now, the Jaguars, not exactly an offensively imposing team. The Texans, struggling on offense. So the Tennessee defense has looked very good. I think they are good, but let's not assume that they're gonna shut everyone down. They're not the Ray Lewis Ravens, but they're proven to be a pretty good football team. They played a tough game today with the Jaguars and pulled it out 9-6. And I say tough, but I could also say ugly because it was painful to watch. For those of you that got stuck with that game on TV today, I'm sorry, because that was a tough one. But hey, they're doing what they can to win football games, and they're now 2-1 in a division with Jacksonville, who I think is still the best team in that division, and a Texans team that looks completely lost. The Texans look completely lost on offense. They don't know whether they want to run the ball. They don't know whether they want to throw the ball. Do they want to be a short pass team, a long pass team? They have no idea. And the protection in front of Deshaun Watson is marginal at best. I don't know that Deshaun Watson is completely over the knee injury. I hear people talk about how, he still runs out of the pocket and he's not afraid and this, that, and the other thing. But he doesn't look as threatening as he used to. Now, I don't know if that's a conscious decision on his part to not pull the ball down and run as much, or if that's just he's not seeing it, it's not being given to him. Maybe he's in a slump. I don't know. But I'm concerned with Deshaun Watson. I thought before the season started that it would take a few weeks for him to really get going again, to get that full confidence in his knee. But after the first 3 weeks, now I'm full-blown concerned. I'm not a Texans fan, by the way, but I play one on TV. But from what I see, it is concerning the way he is playing. He is not playing well, and that offense is just, they're not playing well all the way around. They're averaging less than 20 points a game, which in the NFL, if you average less than 20, there's a good chance you're going to end up 0-3. It's just that simple. They lost today to a Giants team that desperately needed a win. The Giants played a tough game week 1 against the Jaguars. A really tough game last Sunday against the Cowboys where the Cowboys defense just manhandled that offense. But today they look good. And for those people out there that think the Giants should have drafted a quarterback, I understand your point. But at 37, Eli can still do it. If the O-line gives him any kind of time, gives him any kind of pocket, he was putting balls in really tight windows today and had some special zip on the football today. He played an excellent football game. The guy still has it. And the scariest thing about Eli is that quarterback that can catch lightning in a bottle for 3, 4, 5 weeks and produce a playoff run that'll get you to a Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. And he's done that twice. And quite frankly, I think he could do it again. I'm not saying he will. Obviously, it's difficult. But he's the kind of guy that can do it. He really can. He's proven it before, and I have no doubt that he could do it again. The offensive line played much better today. They were able to run the ball. They were able to throw the ball. And it all stems from the offensive line, in my opinion. My brother will tell you, if you follow my brother on Twitter, at Brooklyn Gaucho on Twitter, I mean, he will tell you over and over again, until the cows come home, the offensive line is the issue with the Giants. And today absolutely proved it. Absolutely proved it. The Giants' offensive line played well. Eli Manning played very well. And the Giants won comfortably. It was 27-22. Don't let the score fool you. It was much better than that. The Texans didn't score a touchdown until very late in the game. They scored 2 touchdowns late in the game to make it that close. So now the Giants are at 1-2. And the good thing for them is, I'm bouncing around here a little bit because I already talked about, I was in the AFC, but now I'm going to go over to the NFC East for a little bit. I'm not forgetting about the AFC West, I promise. And then now you've got the NFC East, which is just a hodgepodge of mediocre teams, in my opinion, with the exception of one. I think the Eagles are a good football team. Deservedly, they should win the division. But you just never know, because now Washington looked decent, which, again, I didn't think they were this good, but they've played really well. Alex Smith has played well. They beat the Packers today. So they're looking like a decent football team that is, apparently going to be in the mix. Dallas, you just don't know with Dallas. They played terrible against Carolina. They played great against the Giants. They played terrible and great at times against Seattle today. Seattle's not a good football team, but it is hard to go up to the Northwest and play well. So you don't know what you're going to get with Dallas. I said this before the season started. This back and forth that we're seeing with Dallas, to me, translates to an 8-8 football team. It's just that simple. This is what 8-8 football teams do, and to me, that's what the Dallas Cowboys are. They're an 8-8 football team. I don't know how that's going to change. The Giants, I think, have potential, but again, it's as the offensive line goes, so go the Giants. The big news out of the NFC East today is the return of Carson Wentz for the Eagles. Now, I said it would take a couple weeks. Didn't think it was a huge upgrade from Nick Foles. I think I was right for the most part. Wentz played well, but not crazy good. And I think it's going to take him a couple of weeks. Look, it's tough. A, it's tough to play in the NFL, right? It's just tough. And B, it's tough coming off of a serious knee injury, which is what he had. And C, it's tough with all the pressure. There's a lot of pressure on that guy. He is coming back to quarterback a Super Bowl champion. He's not coming back to quarterback the Cleveland Browns, and if you win 4 games, hey, that's an improvement. It's Super Bowl or bust in Philadelphia, so there is a certain amount of pressure for Carson Wentz. He looked good in the beginning. He struggled as the game went on. I expect that we'll see some of that over the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, but then as we get towards the end of the season, once we hit the midpoint of the season and onward, I think Carson Wentz would hopefully, I would hope, I'm sure Eagles fans hope, that he'll go back to being the MVP caliber quarterback that he was last year before the injury. So it should be pretty interesting stuff. I'm going to jump back to the AFC West. I didn't see this coming, but Kansas City looks phenomenal. I mean, Kansas City is averaging 40 points a game just about, and they look fantastic. Now, everyone's talking about Patrick Mahomes, and he does, I believe he broke the record for touchdowns in the first 3 games with 13. But, man, that guy's got weapons everywhere. Everywhere. I mean, he's got a running game. He's got receivers. He's got a good offensive line. I'm not going to say it's easy to beat Patrick Mahomes, but it's a hell of a lot better to beat Patrick Mahomes than Deshaun Watson right now. And it's a heck of a lot better to beat Patrick Mahomes than Eli Manning right now. Maybe not today because the offensive line played well, but geez, I would love to be Patrick Mahomes. I'm sure I could sling the ball and get a few touchdowns with all the weapons he's got. Don't get me wrong. He's playing well. I'm not saying he's not a good quarterback, but it sure helps when you have that much talent on offense. And they have it in droves. Kansas City is looking like a world beater. Denver's kind of surprising. Started at 2-1. They lost today, but they're a good football team. The Chargers, and then you've got the Raiders, and the Raiders look not good. They don't look good offensively. They don't look good defensively. They don't look good. And as much money as they paid to lure John Gruden out of the Monday Night Football press box, they're expecting a return, and they're not getting it. And I hate to think that a coach is on the hot seat after 3 weeks, but John Gruden's on the hot seat. I mean, it's getting toasty up in Oakland. It's not looking good. I feel for the guy, but they were silly with the Khalil Mack thing, and it just doesn't look good for them right now. They need to make some adjustments and make them quickly. And now moving on to the NFC North. Again, what's going on? What is going on? For those of you that are playing in the Positive Sports Podcast Pigskin Pick'em group on ESPN, I'm very easy to spot. Go to the very bottom, that's me. I've done terribly. I don't know what's going on, and this is part of my problem, is this NFC North. I thought Green Bay was going to be great, 1-1-1. I thought Minnesota was going to be great, 1-1-1, and really disappointing today. I thought the Bears were going to be mediocre. They look really good at 2-1. They barely lost to the Packers, and the last 2 weeks they have played tough football games and have won them both. They look good, and their defense looks exceptionally good. They are going to be a tough out for anyone, and getting a 2-1 start is a nice way to go for them. The Lions are 0-2, but they're playing right now against the Patriots on the Sunday night game, and they're up 13-0 as we hit the 2-minute warning in Detroit. So they could be 1-2 and right in the hunt. That division is going to be interesting, I think, over time. The interesting thing to come out of the Green Bay game today was Clay Matthews again got flagged for a roughing the passer call on a play where, again, I don't understand. What are we trying to do here? I understand that we're trying to preserve the quarterbacks, but we are dramatically influencing football games with these calls. There's got to be some meeting of the minds as to what these defensive players can do. I don't know who makes these decisions, but my guess is that the people on the rules committee are not former 6'3", 250-pound linemen or linebackers that could run a 4.5 40, right? They just don't understand the speed at which this game is played. And on today's sack, I mean, he hit Alex Smith. He moved his head to the side so as to not hit him in the head, not hit him with the crown of the helmet. He took him down, but I mean, it's tackle football. What are we going to do here? Which, again, brings me to my previous point. Put flags on the quarterbacks. Just go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do it. Make the flag thing a sack. Just do it. Because what you're doing is you're taking away the game from those defensive players. You're making it so that a guy like Clay Matthews, who makes, in my opinion, a completely clean play, by the textbook, sure, it's a rough in the passer because of the way the textbook is written, but the rule is wrong. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. It's wrong. And you've got this guy playing the game the right way, and it's costing his team 15 yards, and it's keeping a drive alive, and it becomes a touchdown, a tying touchdown like last week in the Minnesota game or whatever. It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking to watch, really. Put flags on the quarterbacks and make them the only guys that have flags on the field, and we'll tackle them that way. I mean, I don't understand how else to do it, because what we're doing now is we're making it impossible for linemen and linebackers to figure out how to hit this guy we call the quarterback. If you see the hits that go on downfield against receivers and running backs and stuff, I mean, it's a car wreck every single time. But yet this guy, we can't even take him to the ground. We have to somehow get to this guy before he throws the ball and tackle him in such a way that our weight doesn't land on top of him. How the hell are you supposed to do that? He's standing upright and you're coming towards him. Yeah, your weight's going to land on top of him. Where else is it going to land? It's not going to land on the side of him. How are you supposed to tackle a guy? And to me, the perfect example is Big Ben. How are you supposed to tackle that guy? If you don't bury your head in that guy's chest and drive him to the ground, You're never getting him down. Are you supposed to do arm tackle that guy? What are you going to do? Grab him by the ankle and pull it out from under him? No, I mean, I don't see how Big Ben gets sacked at all with the new rules. I just don't see it. I don't understand. Anyway, that's enough ranting about it. This year, we're going to rant about that stupid rule just like we did about the VAR during the World Cup. I mean, it is just... I understand what they're trying to do. It's a good thing overall, but it's just wrong for the system, for the way football works right now. And we got to find a better way, or we're gonna cost someone too much for something that's so impossible to avoid. NFC South. Wow, what a game today between the Saints and the Falcons. And I thought early on, before the season started, that these two teams would be fighting it out for the NFC South. And of course, with Carolina being close behind, my plans have been somewhat derailed by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who are 2-0. But let's see what happens tomorrow. But the Saints and Falcons were in a knockdown, drag-out fight today, and the Saints pulled it out in overtime. Drew Brees broke the record for most completions. Look, by the time that guy quits, he's going to have all the records. He is a incredible quarterback, incredible longevity, too, for a guy who really, he's been around for a long time, and he's really played the game well. He doesn't get, in my opinion, he doesn't get enough love from the national media, but he is not only is he an exceptional quarterback, he's a tremendous leader of that team. And it showed today because they were behind most of the game, but they continued to fight, and eventually tied it up, took it in overtime, and won the game. And he scored 2 touchdowns. So for all of you fantasy geeks out there, he paid off big. I'm sure he's on everyone's team. It may be a question of whether you played him or not, depending on who your other quarterback is. But if you got him, play him, because he is an incredible, incredible quarterback. The Falcons are sitting at the bottom of that division at 1-2. Only one game out. It's early. There's a long way to go. They do have a tough schedule, but they're going to be in the mix. They're a good football team as well. Looking out west, the Rams look like they're going to run away with this thing. I mean, they look good. They had the Battle of LA today against the Chargers, and they won it pretty convincingly. They're a solid football team. They've won all 3 of their games by 10 points or more. They've outscored their opponents by 22 points a game. They are the real deal. They're tough, and they're going to be a problem in the playoffs. I'll tell you that right now. In fact, it's looking, I mean, it's very early, but it sure does look like the playoffs may run through LA at some point. And then behind them, there's not much. Seattle won today finally against the Cowboys, but they don't look good. They also have a big offensive line problem. They were giving up 6 sacks a game until today. Today, I think they only gave up 2. So obviously something to address. San Francisco does not look like a very good football team. And on top of that, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jimmy G as they call him out there, was taken off the field on a stretcher today. He left the game with an apparent ACL injury, which is going to be a problem. I don't know who the backup is there, but that's a problem. And then Arizona, they've got a rookie quarterback. They're working out some kinks. This is a rebuilding type of season for them, in my opinion. But the Rams are as good as advertised. They're a lot of fun to watch, I'll tell you that. So, with that, I think that covers the NFL. Other news around the world today, or around the world this week. For those of you that like mixed martial arts, I'm not going to talk about a fight. I'm going to talk about a press conference because it was ridiculously entertaining. UFC 229 is October 6th in Las Vegas. It will feature, the feature fight will be the lightweight champion of the world right now, Khabib Nurmagomedov, against a certain Irishman that I'm sure you've all heard about, Conor McGregor. Now, for those of you that follow fighting, I apologize if this sounds redundant. For those fans that do not follow fighting, let me give you a little background here. Conor McGregor is a brash Irishman, but he backs it up. Say what you want about the guy. He talks a lot of crap, but he backs it up. He brings the fight, and he is incredibly good at what he does. He burst onto the scene a few years ago, made a run to the title, eventually winning the featherweight title, which is 145 pounds. Challenged, was talking about fighting for the 170 title. Was going to skip 155 altogether. He had 2 fights with a guy at 170 who was bigger than him, and a fantastic couple of fights against him. Lost the first one, came back and beat him in the second one. Then he went and won the 155-pound championship, which is the championship currently held by Khabib Nurmagomedov. He beat a gentleman by the name of Eddie Alvarez. Eddie Alvarez is as good as they come. And when I'm talking about a bad SOB, Eddie Alvarez is a bad SOB. He is the kind of guy that, in a fight, man, that guy is ridiculous. He is a true savage. And Conor McGregor beat him in 2 rounds. And then Conor McGregor went off and decided to fight Floyd Mayweather in boxing for a $100 million payday, which, quite frankly, I'd fight Floyd for $100 million. I don't know that I'd last 10 rounds like Conor McGregor did. But for $100 million, I'd give it a go. As I'm sure most of you would. And now he's back. And he wants his 155-pound crown. And where the press conference got really interesting, again, for those of you that don't know, Khabib was supposed to fight a gentleman by the name of Tony Ferguson for the interim lightweight championship because they didn't know what Conor was going to do. Conor was sitting on $100 million and couldn't figure out how to get down from the pile of money. And so he was going to fight this interim championship fight. Ferguson got hurt. They got someone else. He got hurt. And so now they're trying to get someone else to fight Khabib, again for the interim title. And during the week of the fight, there's some video leaked of Khabib kind of roughing up a fellow Russian who happens to be one of Conor McGregor's very, very, very good friends. So apparently Conor McGregor and his cronies, Conor McGregor and some friends get on a flight from Ireland and go to New York, where the fight was being held, looking for Khabib. Like, he's ready to throw down with Khabib. Eventually, he finds him in a bus, and Khabib wouldn't get off the bus. The UFC officials wouldn't let him get off the bus, whatever. Conor's going nuts. He throws a dolly through a window. A couple of guys get cut up, and they can't fight, and Conor gets arrested, goes to jail for a night or two. Khabib then fights a couple days later, or a day later, whatever, and ends up winning that championship. Conor was stripped of his championship, so now Khabib is the champion, and so now they have finally come to an agreement to fight. And so they had a press conference on Thursday, which, if you want to hear some entertaining stuff, you got to go watch this press conference. It was entertaining as can be. And the thing that's impressive, and I've heard NBA guys talk about this, if you're going to be a trash talker, you got to do your homework. You got to study. And Conor did. When Conor talks trash, it's not just, I'm going to beat you up. It's not just, I'm going to kick your ass. It's all kinds of stuff. Some of it is comedy. You're a bum. If you fight me, I make you rich. You call your wife and tell her it's red panty night. So sometimes it's funny. Sometimes it's digging in the background. Khabib and his father have been involved with some less than nice people in Russia. Conor brought that up. Khabib's manager yelled something from the stands. Conor went at him, talking about his kid, talking about him being a snitch. Documented stuff with the NYPD. So Conor did his homework. He came ready. Just as ready as he will be for that fight. And it was completely entertaining. My big takeaway from the press conference, 2 things. One, he's got his own brand of whiskey, Proper 12. He brought it with him on stage, of course. Had a shot of whiskey. I need to find out where we can get this whiskey because I want to try it. But the man is not just a fighter. He's a businessman. At one point, he made mention of Conor McGregor Promotions. So he's getting into the promotion side of the business. He's got his own whiskey. He's talked about having his own line of clothing because he's big into nice suits and stuff like that. And he's a fighter. So the guy is a multifaceted individual. And if you think he's just a dumb fighter, you're wrong. You're mistaken. He is an entrepreneur. He is a showman. And he is a good fighter. The other thing that struck me was Khabib. Khabib tried to restrain himself. He tried to be very calm. He knew he was not going to win the war of words with Conor McGregor. So he tried to let Conor just say whatever he wants. And Khabib's standard response to everything was, we will see October 6th. But there were a couple of times where you could see a chink in the armor. Some of the stuff that Conor said got to him. Because I don't think that Khabib expected Conor to go at him about his friend who's in jail for embezzlement and the fact that he didn't take a picture with Putin at the World Cup and things like that. He really went after him, and you could see at times Khabib get very flustered. Although he didn't yell and scream, you could tell that he got flustered. And look, that's what McGregor does, right? To him, the fight is not just about a left hand and a right hand and some kicks. It's between the ears as well. And the fight begins well before they step into the octagon. The fight's been going on for a while with these two. And, that's what Conor's doing. But it is going to be wildly entertaining. For those of you that like fighting, I don't need to tell you to watch on pay-per-view on October 6th. For those of you that don't, go out to your local bar and go catch it on pay-per-view, man, because it will be a lot of fun to watch. Conor McGregor and Khabib Nurmagomedov. There's a bunch of other good fights on it on that card as well. But obviously the main event is the topic of conversation. Well, that's all I have for now. This is episode 38. The Positive Sports Podcast, episode 38. If you want to reach out to the show and share your comments and thoughts with us, you can do so at positivesports10@gmail.com. positivesports10@gmail.com. If you want to get a hold of my absentee co-host today only, well, you can get a hold of him whenever you want, but he's absent today. Today only. I sure hope it's only today. I love having him here. I miss him alongside of me. But if you want to get a hold of my co-host Alex, you can do so on Twitter at Brooklyn Gaucho. If you want to get a hold of me, you can do so on Twitter as well at eMontana21. Podcast 38, famous number 38s. I can't think of many. In fact, I can't think of any except for one. And this is going to make my cousin very happy because he's a Philly guy. Curt Schilling, number 38. And I know he became very famous for his bloody sock game with the Red Sox against the Yankees. But I think of him as a Philly guy. So, Cousin Jay, I hope you like that. A shout out to one of your guys, number 38, Curt Schilling. When Alex sees this, he's going to go, what the hell are you talking about? I can't believe you did it. The only thing you could think of was a Philly guy. He'll probably remember some New York guy that I could not remember. It's funny, when you sit here and you start doing it, all of a sudden you're like, you draw a blank. Oh, well. My shout out today, I do have a shout out. My shout out goes to Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods won the Tour Championship today. He didn't win the FedEx Cup Championship. He was pretty far down in the standings and needed some other people to not do well in order for him to win it. He ended up second, but he did win the Tour Championship, which is a prestigious tournament during the golf season, and he really rocketed through he played well on Thursday and Friday, but yesterday he just blew through the field and really took a commanding lead. Came into today 3 strokes up, ended up winning, I believe, by 5 strokes. I love it. Golf is so much better when Tiger Woods is good, and Tiger Woods was really good this weekend. Hats off to him. I can't wait to see what he's going to do. The Ryder Cup starts next week, which is very exciting as far as golf goes. What a great time for him to be playing well. Phil Mickelson did not play as well, but The Ryder Cup's a different beast. So, shout out to Tiger Woods on winning the Tour Championship. His first tournament win in several years. Hats off to him. Can't wait to see him next week at the Ryder Cup. Go Team USA. I think it's unfair that we have to play the rest of the world, or Europe. Why can't it just be one country? Why do we have to play them all? Like, doesn't that mean by default that we should win the Ryder Cup? That's what I think. Look, we can play against all of Europe, right? That's fine. But then at the end, give us the cup because obviously we're the best, right? Because we're all from one country. So if we're going by countries here, play the tournament. I'm not saying don't play it. It'll be fun and all. But at the end, you give it to the U.S. because we all did it from one country. They did it from several countries. I mean, I'm just saying, right? America. Sorry, I couldn't resist. I know some people hate that. But anyway, so with that, we come to the end of another wonderful episode of the Positive Sports Podcast. Thank you very much to all of our fans and friends that watch these episodes on YouTube or listen to them on iTunes, Google Play, Podbean, whatever platform you choose to use. We always appreciate your support, your comments, and we look forward to speaking with you again. For my absent co-host, who I know misses this and wants to be here, we will see you next week. As always, folks, ignore the negativity. Be the positivity. Peace.